Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. Hello, everyone. Let me know if you see me. This is live number 194 and the third live of 2025. This is Hormone Balance, the missing puzzle piece. So this is the Fierce Women community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. This is the premier health and fitness space for women above 40, going into perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause to learn more about their bodies as it changes during this unique season in their lives, on how to optimize hormones, lose fat, reduce belly fat particularly, and build fierce, strong muscles. And we hope to provide a safe and nurturing place for all women to be their fittest and fiercest selves. And I will let you know there will be a surprise, not in this live, but it's coming very, very soon on some of the things we're working on that will probably benefit a lot of you. And so that surprise is not going to be on this live though, but I will let you guys know that soon, maybe in the next week here. Today's topic is a very, very important concept for all of you to understand. Hormones is one of the things I think is, if you understand it, it will change your life. Now, the hard part about hormones is it is very, very complex. If you have not heard Oshone say, she tries to read those research papers, but her eyes crosses over. It is very crazy. I would say in my research now, if you have done my 21-day in anti-inflammation course and you've done my muscle hormone building masterclass, that one was probably about 90 hours of research with over, I would say, probably 200 pages worth of hormone stuff that I had. And in preparing for this, just want you guys to get an idea, because I'm not going to go into tons and tons of detail today. I will, but not to the extent, because even for preparing this live, I think we went through about 50 pages of notes I have. So we're not going to go through all of that. Otherwise, you will not be sleeping tonight and you will all have your eyes crossed, teeth crossed, arms crossed, everything will cross. So what I want to help you guys understand is that in this live, I will help you dive more into the important hormones that you need to understand as a woman above 40 and in your postmenopause or menopause stages. Okay. So this is going to give you an overview of all the major hormones that you need to understand and some actionable steps that you can take in a more general sense. If you're going to get into the details of it, that I would say would probably require more of a masterclass or something within a course, because it is so intensive. Like this could be a 300-page book, right? So just to kind of give you guys preface in regards to that. And I guess how many of you on here, before I dive into it, feel like you have hormonal imbalances in your body? So we're going to dive into it. We are going to dive into 10 hormone profiles of what hormones you should pay attention to. Now, like I said, I simplified it. Like I pulled it back from 50 pages of notes to taking out a whole bunch of stuff, because I put it instead, I said this stuff is going to be in the course curriculum, or I might do a hormone masterclass, which may come down the line later on, because it's very intense. So it's gonna be a little bit simpler, but you still are gonna take lots of notes because it's quite still complex. My simple is still complex. Okay, so we're gonna start first with estrogen. So estrogen is obviously one of the most important hormones and connected to you as a woman, obviously. It is produced in your ovaries with small amounts synthesized in your fat tissues and the adrenal glands, okay? So what is estrogen responsible for? It regulates obviously your menstrual cycle, your cardiovascular health, and your brain health, okay? So think about this for a second. So all of those things that you start to think about your brain and like maybe slowing down or feeling brain fog, a lot of this has to do with your estrogen levels, okay? In your 20s to 30s, your estrogen levels are very high, supporting good reproduction, obviously, and good, healthy, strong bones. As you enter 40s, your estrogen levels will begin to fluctuate during perimenopause, causing irregular cycles and symptoms like hot flashes. So in your 40s to 50s, you are going to start to see some changes. It's not that intense yet, but you start to see shifts in your body. And we're going to talk about these shifts a little bit more, but I'm just going to keep going with the timeline. In your 50s and 60s, your estrogen production drops significantly. So estrogen production drops significantly during this age range. And this huge drop increases your risk of osteoporosis and heart disease. And again, I'm going to get into a host of things that's going to come from this drop in estrogen right away, but just keeping with the timeline, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then 70s. In your 70s, like Phyllis, minimal estrogen is produced in your fat tissues, okay? Meaning there's not much more being produced outside of the fat tissue that it's producing. So it leaves women really vulnerable to estrogen-related deficiencies, okay? And there's a lot with estrogen deficiency I'll get to right away. But this declining estrogen shifts a lot of your fat storage from your hips and thighs to your abdominal. Now, I speak about this a lot if you follow me for a long time, that this will move to your belly fat because of the change in estrogen to testosterone. It's the ratio that matters. The estrogen drops lower and the testosterone is higher, so the fat distribution moves to your center. Now, I see a lot of 60s, 50s, 60s, 60, 65, 66, 61, 63. Yeah, so we have a lot of you, and I know that. So if you're in your 40s, I always tell all my 40-year-olds, okay, you are in a good position to tackle this like now and prevent a lot of these things from happening. And what you do in your 40s, like Kat Wilson, like Sherry Elgersma, your changes come a lot faster. So it's like also really good to be proactive in your 40s, right? So what happens when you have estrogen related deficiencies? Okay, so estrogen deficiency is going to lead to a number of potential problems in your body. So number one, you may be having bone health deficiencies. So osteoporosis, osteopenia, things that where your bones become very brittle and, obviously like easy fractures and things like that will start to happen. This is quite common. My mom actually has osteoporosis, and there's some parts of it ethnicity as well that Asians are quite known to get osteoporosis. So this is why your estrogen drops significantly. Another thing that you will experience with drop of estrogen is heart health. So your estrogen protects your cardiovascular system. It maintains like good cholesterol levels and your arterial like structure, stiffness. But as estrogen drops, your blood vessels actually do not function as well anymore, starts to kind of becomes more fragile, if you want to call that. So this can cause things like increased blood pressure, higher cholesterol levels, and greater risk of atherosclerosis, which is heart attacks. Okay. So you want to be careful, especially I know a lot of women I coach have blood pressure issues or cholesterol issues. Because your arterial walls are no longer as strong, this is why what you do, what you eat becomes even more important, and how you balance even your sodium levels, electrolytes. Actually, when building that new curriculum that's coming down the line, I have a section on electrolytes. And so it's like everything becomes more fragile. You need to become even more precise on what's going on. Okay. The third thing that you will experience as estrogen starts to drop. So with the drop of estrogen, you will have also vaginal and urinary deficiencies. Okay. So as your estrogen drops, estrogen basically kind of helps the tissues of your vaginal area. It will actually get like thinner and not as, structured. So you become more dry. It's harder to, obviously, like it's just the truth. I'm just being honest. People have more pain during intercourse. It's harder for them to get aroused. They have problems with their, sex life. And I actually say, you handling your hormones is also really important for this part, because you can have urinary tract infections. I believe, Tracy, you have urinary things that went on with yours as well, because I think Tracy's over 60 and had a few surgeries. So this is kind of why, because estrogen drops off there. So it really affects it. Number 4 is skin and hair deficiencies. As your estrogen drops, your collagen production drops, okay? And estrogen stimulates collagen production. And because you have lowered estrogen, your skin accelerates in its aging, okay? So your collagen will drop off because of the estrogen coming down. So what happens is with estrogen drop, you will have thinning and dry skin, okay? Increased wrinkles and reduced skin elasticity and hair thinning and loss, okay? So that's why, yes, I understand there's a collagen craze. Yes, take your collagen. That is important. But one of the reasons is that your estrogen is continuing to drop. And if you were here earlier, you know that 40s is still there, but starting to go 50s, 60s, it hits you pretty hard. And then by 70s, you really have almost very low estrogen. I actually, like, that's why I said I might do a masterclass. I'm considering it. I have a chart that I charted out all your hormone levels, and your estrogen really dives like all the way down like this, like crazy. Okay. As well as progesterone, which I'm going to talk about soon. But the number 5 thing you're going to experience with estrogen drop, and if you are experiencing some of these things, put it below. Number 5 is you're also going to have brain and neurological potential deficiencies. Estrogen controls neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and regulates mood and cognition, okay? When estrogen starts to drop, you will have potential more brain fog, difficulty concentrating, increased risk of mood disorders, mood swings, anxiety, and depression is very common in menopausal women. And so you're not going crazy. It is sometimes related to that drop in estrogen. So just again, that's like just so you're aware. And of course, yeah, there are things you can do, which I'll get to, but I just want you to understand where all your symptoms are coming from, understand the hormones that are happening in your body. Dry skin, achy joints from Thayer, brain fog, Marcel. Brain fog is super common. I think almost most women, I would say 60 and above would tell me they have brain fog. 40s, not always, but brain fog is coming if you don't manage that well, right? So that's quite common. So thank you for sharing. Number 6 is you may have metabolic and fat distribution problems or deficiencies. So this I talk a lot about. You are potentially going to gain more weight. Why? Because estrogen helps you regulate metabolism and fat storage. So its deficiency leads to increased belly fat and slower metabolism. Okay. You know, the switch in estrogen to testosterone I spoke about is going to produce more belly fat. But beyond the belly fat, it's also because estrogen regulates metabolism. It connects with thyroid, which is coming down the line I'll talk about. So it connects with your thyroid and insulin resistance. Okay, so estrogen controls a lot of the things happening in your body. And because it's connecting to thyroid metabolism as well as potential insulin resistance, this whole process means you're going to potentially gain weight faster. So number 7, sleep deficiencies. So estrogen influences, again, I spoke about the serotonin and melatonin production. Okay, so estrogen basically controls a lot of neurotransmission. So if you have a drop in that, your mood, like I talked about, goes down, but melatonin is in charge of sleep, right? So this will cause disruption in your circadian rhythm and reduce sleep quality. So you'll see that as you age, insomnia is very common. Difficulty sleeping is really common. Night sweats, hot flashes, all relate to kind of like disruption in your circadian rhythms. Okay. So this is why if you are having trouble sleeping, this is why as well. As well, number 8 is immune system deficiency. So as your estrogen drops off, your estrogen is your anti-inflammation protection. Okay. It supports immune regulation. So as it drops off, okay, it lowers your whole immune system, right? So what does this mean? Okay, so if it lowers your whole immune system, it means it cannot control inflammation. Oh, there's the word. Everyone who follows Clarice knows she talks about inflammation so much. Yeah, because as estrogen drops off, your immune system cannot handle inflammation. And that is why you have to be particularly very diligent about your food and what you eat and what you put in your body. Yesterday I was in the BioRevive system, right? BioRevive ladies, and I did a brief talk about accountability. And one of the things I said is if I came to your home and looked in your fridge, what would I see? And your pantry? Would I be proud to see what I see there with not a whole lot of inflammatory markers? And that was just because I was challenging the BioRevive ladies to be accountable, right? And BioRevive ladies, if you guys watch that live. And this is because this inflammation control is so crucial, and you go off kilter. No one's perfect. I totally get that, but your off kilter affects you at a much greater capacity. And so that inflammation becomes compromised. Inflammation control becomes compromised. You're going to have more potential joint pain and stiffness, and you will potentially fall into chronic inflammatory conditions because your body cannot control what has happened. So the thing is, if you, because I'm going to be going through a lot of things, but I'm just going to stop here. If you feel like you don't really know how to control inflammation in your body, I want you to put that below, because controlling inflammation is one of the primary things to combat estrogen drop. Okay. So put inflammation below if you really want to understand better how to combat inflammation. Number 9, and I spoke about this earlier, but I put it as a specific category. Okay. So, sexual health deficiencies. So because of estrogen dropping, your vaginal health, your lubrication, your blood flow will decrease. And this will obviously decrease your sexual desire and satisfaction. Typically, as your estrogen drops, you will have lower libido, obviously difficulty achieving your arousal or orgasm, and vaginal discomfort during your intimacy. So sexual health is a big issue here. And number 10 is musculoskeletal deficiencies. So obviously, as estrogen drops, your estrogen really helps you with muscle mass and maintaining good muscle mass. So when the estrogen drops, it cannot support muscle repair and joint lubrication. So two things, muscle repair and joint lubrication drops off. So now your body does not have the ability to repair muscle, and joint mobility is reduced, which I'm going to mention is why I'm going to talk a little bit about menopausal training protocol later. There's a reason why I developed that protocol for training, because of these situations that's happening in your body. Your joints are going quickly. And if you don't know how to train properly, you're going to have a lot of problems in this age. Okay. So just coming back to this is the deficiency in the muscle loss and and the joint stiffness really reduces your ability to build muscle and to repair. Okay. We're going to jump now to the next hormone. That's all the time I'm spending on estrogen. Let me tell you, there was probably 15 more pages to this. I was like, no, I'm not teaching this right now. We will not get through all of this. But that's just to help you understand why so many of you are like experiencing these symptoms, because estrogen drop. We're going to go to progesterone. Okay. So now the next hormone, the second hormone, is progesterone. Now, as you know, progesterone is connected with estrogen, but progesterone is produced mainly in the ovaries during the luteal phase of your menstrual cycle. Okay. Now, if you're wondering what is a luteal phase, that is the second phase of your menstruation after the egg is released, usually day 15 to day 28. Okay. Now, that progesterone is released when the corpus luteum actually forms kind of like around the egg, and it's like a structure, an endocrine structure that's temporary to try to, get it ready for fertilization. Now you have to understand, when you don't have estrogen much anymore and you're not, like things are slowing down, you may not have the corpus luteum actually like forming, right? Because you only produce progesterone from that corpus luteum. So people who have different surgeries, removal of their ovaries and menopause with, cessation of menstruation, you can understand why progesterone drops significantly. Now, like I said, in my course, and again, I'm debating on what to put in my course, or should I do a master class on this? Because I charted out this graph, and your progesterone is actually the largest drop, of all the 9, 10 hormones, progesterone goes like this, like the craziest. Estrogen is above it, progesterone drops crazily, right? Because it will not be produced if your menstruation stops. if you have any removal of your ovaries or anything like that. Now, let's talk a little bit about, the changes of this progesterone over time. So you obviously have high levels of progesterone during 20s, 30s, the regular menstrual cycle, supporting pregnancy, all of that, right? In your 40s, your progesterone drops off earlier than estrogen, leading to estrogen dominance during perimenopause. Okay. Now, I'll keep going with the timeline. I come back to estrogen dominance. This is very relevant to a lot of you. In your 50s and 70s, 50s to 70s, your minimal progesterone production really occurs and continues to cause more and more situations like I talked about when you have estrogen deficiencies and things like that. It really drops off. Okay. Now, without progesterone, why is this really important? Okay. So you could have a regular estrogen hormone level in your body, but it is the level between estrogen, the ratio between estrogen and progesterone that determines estrogen dominance. Now, estrogen dominance is not good. If you have high levels of estrogen dominance, you're going to have heavy prolonged periods, potential irregular menstrual cycles, severe PMS, weight gain that is fast in your hips, thighs, abs, the abdominal region, difficulty losing weight, your breast tenderness is there, and you potentially could have more fibroistic breasts, and you will have more mood swings, brain fog, and faster, just like fatigue. Okay. And also estrogen dominance leads to lots of bloating. Okay. So the ones who are listening, if you have a lot of bloating, a lot of water retention. Now I talked to one of the gals yesterday or the day before, and she was showing me her wrist, and it was all puffy, and she just has that condition where it starts to bloat easily in her body. These are some of the signs and potential symptoms: hair loss, thinning, increased risk of endometrial hyperplasia, uterine fibroids. I know this is quite common with women, and increased potential breast cancer and endometriosis. So why do I say this to you? Because in order for you to understand this, is your progesterone dropping quite quickly really affects your estrogen levels and the ratio. And this is why you cannot necessarily stop all of this. You could take, yes, potential hormone replacement therapy, but there's also a lot of things that you have to remember. That's why the recommended lifestyle changes are so prevalent in older women, like how you live your life, because all of these ratios are dropping. And that if you don't have any more progesterone, so for example, like Tracy, I know you had early menopause, you have basically no progesterone in your body. People like that are older, you have none. So that means these major symptoms you're combating it all the time. Okay. Estrogen dominance is something that is going to be something that I probably put into my course, because estrogen dominance is related also to how you eat and what you put in your body, as well as gut health. Your gut health really determines how much estrogen re-enters your system. Those of you who follow me for a long time know about the estrogen recycling mechanism in your gut. Okay. Now, if you're wanting to understand more about estrogen dominance or estrogen recycling, maybe particularly with gut health, I want you to put estrogen gut health or something like that. Maybe put estrogen gut health. That's a very specific area, and that would be like a gut health live. But this is why all those things and what you eat and your gut health impacts the estrogen in your body. Okay. So put that below if you want more guidance on that. Number 3, we're going to now jump to testosterone. Okay. So testosterone, as women, we have it as well, is produced in your ovaries and your adrenal glands. Okay. Obviously, we know testosterone supports libido, muscle mass, as well as bone health. In your 20s and 30s, testosterone peaks. Okay. So your testosterone actually is very high, supports energy, strength, sexual health. In your 40s, the levels start to decline gradually, but usually it's not drastic like estrogen and progesterone. Okay. Estrogen and progesterone is quite drastic. Testosterone kind of levels out gradually. So you don't notice it too much. Usually you'll notice it quite almost you're surprised. I know some of you have told me you're surprised by some of your symptoms because you never experienced that throughout your 40s maybe even your 50s. But as testosterone gradually declines, you're suddenly going to feel like, oh my gosh, like I feel different. Like what's going on? Like I don't have libido anymore. My muscles dropping very fast. What's wrong with my body? Like why is my muscles and everything starts to drop quickly? And this is because whereas estrogen and progesterone produces like those really noticeable things like bloating and like just mood swings and hot flashes and all of that, you actually don't notice testosterone as much until it gets quite low, like in your 50s to 70s, and then it hits you really, really hard. Why I say to all the women in their 40s, if you're still in your 40s, make sure you work at maintaining good levels of testosterone, which again, if I get to it later, is obviously one of the key is weight training. So I can't emphasize how important that is. There's different ways you can really emphasize more production of testosterone in your body, right? So, and I guess maybe a quick question for everyone watching. How many of you have noticed you have muscle loss was very fast, or like you just see like your body's tone just like drop like that? Put it below if you feel like muscle tone dropped, like put muscle tone dropped below. And that probably is due to testosterone, dropping. Okay. In regards to testosterone, we need to understand this a little bit more. Now, testosterone is not in high levels in women's body. We have a process called aromatization, or aromatase is an enzyme, okay, where it actually converts testosterone into estrogen, okay? This happens in your fat cells and tissues. So your body actually will not maintain a lot of free floating testosterone. It will convert a lot of testosterone to estrogen. Okay. So there is some good and some bad to this. Okay. If it takes your testosterone and converts it to estrogen, okay, it could help you when you are super low in estrogen and have nothing left. Okay. When you have nothing left, you're thankful you have your body naturally will go to those fat cells and try to convert testosterone to estrogen. It can help you. However, as I spoke about earlier, and this is a big topic, that's why estrogen dominance can become another big live, is if this happens and it's converting a lot of this to estrogen, it can create an estrogen dominant situation too. So you want to like be careful, like you don't want too much conversions and kind of that estrogen and testosterone balance. So without getting too complicated, okay, what I'm saying is you should improve testosterone in your system because most of it will not stay as free floating. But the free floating testosterone will help you with muscle mass, muscle build, bone density, and all of that. You will still have some. And it's very important that you have the balance there, the balance of your testosterone to your estrogen. Okay. Testosterone levels are important to maintain for these reasons. It will help you with muscle protein synthesis. It will help you with decreasing muscle loss. So it kind of staves off sarcopenia, which is the muscle, losing muscle very quickly. So it kind of keeps it at bay as much as possible, helps you with bone health, libido, energy and mood, vitality. So, the feeling of feeling really good, a lot of you who go work out or train, actually that comes from a lot of, there's some neurotransmitters too, but it comes a lot from testosterone, the vitality feeling. Okay. And the testosterone, having a little bit better testosterone levels can help you with body recomposition, maintaining better muscle mass versus the fat ratio. So that's testosterone. Okay. Let's dive into the next one. So human growth hormone is your fourth hormone that I want you to pay attention to. Now, human growth hormone is stimulated in lifting weights and going to exercise. It is secreted by your pituitary gland. Okay. So HGH is a really big hormone for women, as well as the next hormone I'm going to talk about, because you actually cannot use too much testosterone. Free floating testosterone is minimal for women. You can have some, but actually women depend way more on HGH as well as insulin growth factor, which is the next hormone I'll talk about. Okay. So HGH stimulates growth cell repair and metabolism. So in your 20s to 30s, HGH levels are super high, supports skin elasticity, muscle mass, and good fat metabolism. Okay. In your 40s, your HGH production decreases, a slow cell repair and fat metabolism. So in your 40s, you could think it's like yellow light. Yeah. 40s are yellow lights, 20, 30s, green light. 50s and 70s, yellow to red light. Okay. The best way to help you understand. So 50 to 70s, your low HGH exacerbates age-related muscle loss and fat gain, particularly visceral fat. So your fat gain speeds up in your 50s and 70s, okay, to 70s. A couple of things. I'm not spending too much time on HGH. HGH is secreted by working out. I mentioned this, okay? I'm going to mention the menopausal training protocol here. And I want you to put MTP below if you want to understand this better, because in regards to excreting more HGH and insulin growth factor, you have to really prioritize different kinds of lifting. You need compound movements and some big lifts in there. You definitely need some big lifts in there. You need to incorporate high intensity interval training, but you need to have appropriate rest protocols in regards to this. And so this is why I'm not going to go into too much. That MTP, menopausal training protocol, that I developed is based on training in a way to balance your hormones. It's not just training to train, and it's not just going to group class just to go to group class. It's to understand the ratios of what kinds of lifting, what kinds of things you need to do within your workout, and the percentages between your lifts, your lifting, your cardio, your high intensity interval training, your low intensity interval training, as well as your mobility work. All of these things need to be in a balance because of these hormones. So I always talk about MTP because the more, and I'm telling you, like, I study a lot into hormones. The more I understand hormones, the more I'm like, there's a certain way you should train. Okay. That's why Sonia came to me for specific muscle building. Now, I prefer to help nutrition and muscle building, but like not everybody, wants that. So that's why she specifically really wanted muscle building from me, because of these MTP protocols. Okay. So I'm not going to go more into HGH, other than HGH is very important for you as a woman. Okay. We're going to go to the next hormone, which is insulin-like growth factor, which is IGF-1. Now, IGF-1 is greatly impacted by your HGH, okay? So it's produced in the liver in response to HGH. Like it receives a signal from HGH, right? So for sure, if your HGH is low, you're not having much insulin growth factor. If your HGH is higher, you're going to have more insulin growth factor, correct? So that's the connection there. And insulin growth factor is really helping also in muscle growth, repair, and metabolism. So in your 20s and 30s, your IGF-1 supports muscle growth, repair, and glucose utilization. This is important. Okay, that's why it's called insulin-like growth factor. Notice the name. It relates to glucose. Okay, so in your 20s and 30s, it really optimizes glucose utilization. In your 40s, as this HGH drops off, your insulin growth factor starts to drop, and so tissue repair and muscle building is harder. Why? Because if it affects your glucose uptake, your body actually cannot repair as easily. Okay, so starts to decline, and then in the 50s to 70s, your reduced insulin growth factor 1 contributes to sarcopenia, which is rapid muscle loss and fat redistribution. Okay, so 50s to 70, you will experience sarcopenia very fast because HGH continues to decline and insulin growth factor continues to decline. And this lowered IGF-1 will not only lead to decreased muscle mass, but increase visceral fat. Okay, increase visceral fat, belly fat particularly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit without getting into too much detail. There's a lot to insulin growth factor. Insulin growth factor is in certain pathways related to muscle building and repair. So there's a pathways actually called mTOR pathway. You've heard of that. Some of you have heard of that from, if you follow like fasting protocols, they talk about mTOR pathways, AKT, as well as P13K. These are pathways that all deal with muscle repair and hypertrophy. And IGF-1 is very connected to those pathways. So when it's not present, it suppresses your muscle building process. So like IGF-1, you want to think about it. Like here's like, I try to simplify it. Your muscle is, there's like these signals they're getting to break down the muscle. You're always fighting catabolic tendencies in your body. Your body's always trying to break down muscles in your body. IGF-1 is this molecule. You could say maybe it's the cop or whatever you want to say. It comes in and like, hey, don't break down the protein molecules. And it inhibits catabolic pathway, which is actually called FOX0 signaling. Don't worry about it. But this FOX0 signaling is this pathway where it comes in and it stops the catabolism from happening. This is very important because your body wants to break your muscle down. It wants to break down. So insulin growth factor 1 comes in and stops it. This is why actually learning how to optimize IGF-1 is really crucial because it actually really stops this breakdown process. Okay. And then it will also help you like with your metabolism. When it is present, it will help you have better metabolic rate in your body. Okay. So the IGF-1, because it affects your metabolism, it affects your muscle breakdown, it also really contributes to visceral fat, as I said earlier. So if you don't have IGF-1, a lot of your body's responses and inflammation markers and all of that is rising. And IGF-1 really like controls that inflammation response. And that inflammation response will help you like stop the belly fat from depositing as much. Okay. So it's like you want IGF-1 there to help you at all times. Okay. So again, if you're saying like, but how do I increase IGF-1? So if you really want to learn this, I really strongly encourage you to learn from my muscle sculpting masterclass, which is in the Bio Revive system, or anyone who's done the 21-day anti-inflammation. Those of you who did the 21-day anti-inflammation and you did my muscle sculpting masterclass in there, is it true? You learned a lot about these hormones. It was crazy. And in there, I talk about the exercise, but also the foods and the nutrition you need to do to promote IGF-1 regulation. You know, like simply vitamin D is a huge precursor of a lot of these things and hormones related to this, without getting into a lot of specifics right now. But if you really want to learn more, or you want to understand that muscle sculpting masterclass or things like that, then put it below muscle sculpting masterclass or IGF-1. You can put it below. Okay. Again, like every hormone basically can be one life. That's basically what I was like thinking to myself. Oh my gosh, every hormone could be one live, and there's 10 hormones I'm discussing here, right? So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there is the impact of what you eat and things like vitamin D and like different things that you eat that actually stimulates more IGF-1 in response also to a lot of lifting and what you lift, how you train, right? So, that's number 5. Number 6, next hormone is insulin. So we're going to dive into this big hormone that a lot of you need to be aware of. Okay. So insulin is produced in your pancreas. Insulin regulates blood sugar levels and promotes glucose uptake in your cells. Okay. We want good insulin sensitivity. You don't want insulin resistance. Okay. A lot of people ask me and they message me, what's the term you said that like glucose doesn't uptake well, or what? Like it gets confusing. I get it. You want insulin sensitivity, but you don't want insulin resistance. Okay. What that means is you want your body and your cells to be sensitive to the hormone insulin so that it can uptake sugar into your body. You don't want it to be resistant, because resistance means the cells do not uptake those glucose into the cells. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the timeline. So in your 20s and 30s, insulin sensitivity is optimal, allowing efficient glucose utilization. So here's an example is, I always make fun of beautiful Oshone, but Oshone is in her 30s. She is still in her optimal state. She doesn't have to worry so much about it, right? A couple of my friends said they wanted to watch this live, and I asked them their age, and I said, just know I speak to women above 40. So if you're still watching, you're a little bit younger, you are in the green zone, it's good, but you still should, care about it because it's coming down the line. In your 40s, insulin resistance can begin to develop due to hormonal fluctuations. Like I talked about, the estrogen drop really affects that insulin resistance. Okay. So in your 40s, you might not notice it, but your metabolism slowing down and your insulin resistance, like the way you respond to carbs and different things, starts to change if you really pay attention. And in your 50s to 70s, insulin resistance becomes very common. Let me say that again. Did everyone catch that? In your 50s to your 70s, and I saw there were a lot of you between 50s, 60s, 70s here on this live, insulin resistance becomes very common, leading to elevated blood sugar and fat storage, especially in the abdomen. Okay. And the chronic insulin resistance, like the chronic, meaning it always is not responding to sugar well, promotes visceral fat accumulation. So it's going to keep depositing belly fat okay, into your belly. Okay. And in regards to the insulin, this is kind of like why your food and what you eat matters. And I speak a lot about the quality of your food because quality of food relates to inflammation, but also quality of food without getting to numbers yet. Like just purely, if I said to you, quality of food, show me your plate, show me what is happening on your plate. That matters because what you are eating on that plate will potentially impact insulin, right? Insulin responds to a lot of the carbs entering your system, or, you might have some protein things that have carb loading or sugar loading in there. That all connects to it. And if your insulin is dropping in functionality and getting worse and worse by 50s, 60s, 70s, you can see why I'm so finicky about what happens on your plate. Okay. So if you want to understand more about food quality food quality, I would say I will put food quality below. And I also will put us here. If you have not watched a live I did, which was related to pre-diabetes and insulin resistance, that live was last year. You can put that there as well. Insulin resistance live. Maybe put the live just so we know you're referencing the live. If you want that insulin resistance live, because that one I do talk about why you will potentially get to a pre-diabetic state if you don't actually monitor your food. Okay. So yeah, put that below. And if you want to learn more about food quality, for sure, put it below as well. Okay. Next hormone, number 7. Let's dive to thyroid hormone. Okay. So as you know, the thyroid is the butterfly shape in kind of the neck area. It is responsible for T3 and T4, which regulates your metabolism, energy production, and body temperature. Okay. So in your 20s, 30s, thyroid hormones are typically stable, supporting a very good metabolism. I know all of you are like, if only it was 20 to 30 again. Yes, we all wish that, but there's beauty in aging as well. So 40s, okay, in 40s, subclinical, meaning like starting, like, they have data showing that there's increasing people who come to them in clinics on hypothyroidism. And estrogen fluctuates a lot, causing the thyroid to fluctuate as well, okay? So in your 40s, is not uncommon to start to see some thyroid issues, hypothyroidism. In your 50s to 70s, your thyroid dysfunction continues potentially, and it contributes to fatigue, weight gain, and joint stiffness. Okay. And that will cause, there's a lot with the belly fat. It slows down your metabolism. Again, it increases your fat storage and it causes your energy to drop. Okay. So in regards to thyroid, so like you're in menopause, let's talk about menopause and thyroid. Okay. In menopause, it brings about fluctuations in your estrogen progesterone, right? Like I talked about earlier. So what happens is estrogen actually binds to thyroid, and it can increase something called a thyroid binding globulin. Okay. When it binds to that thyroid, it actually cannot be used. Now, we want more free T3. Okay. T3 moving through your system for your metabolism. When it binds to it, it cannot be used. So what happens is that, do you remember I talked about when there's fluctuations in your estrogen and your progesterone, your estrogen, you could have normal estrogen level, but if your estrogen progesterone levels are off and there is an off ratio, that will affect things in your body. So if there's more estrogen dominance or estrogen binding to thyroid, now you have lowered thyroid, right? And lower thyroid means lower thyroid function, hypothyroidism, right? It reduces the free T3 available for your cellular activity. And when you don't have as much T3, then like a whole bunch of things will happen. Your cellular activity cannot function as fast as well, right? So, with kind of the reduced T3, so basically you have to have T4 that converts to T3, okay? With the reduced T4 to T3, this is lead to a number of other issues. So you will potentially have more stress, more chronic stress, okay? Because cortisol is impacted by this situation happening with the T4 to T3, more nutrient deficiency because you have like reduced enzyme activity, right? Because the thyroid is controlling cellular metabolism activity. So it doesn't have the ability to uptake nutrition as well. And it will potentially have increased what we call reverse T3. Reverse T3 competes with T3. So it basically like does not allow T3 to function. You can see this gets quite complicated, T4 to T3 and all of this. Your metabolism basically, in short, with thyroid is all related to that. And so you want to make sure you control, well, I guess, like I said, things we're going to talk about is controlling how you can control estrogen, cortisol, stress response, so that your thyroid can also function better. Now, your thyroid function is partially due to, your lifestyle, but what you eat is also very important. And again, I'm not going to get into tons of it, but like zinc and selenium are important aspects to your thyroid. And that's why if you have actually followed me, I have talked about Brazil nuts quite a bit, and everybody suddenly goes and runs and buy Brazil nuts. It's funny. But, things that support your zinc and selenium and things like that is very important. So there's ways to support your thyroid health. So again, if you want to learn more about supporting your thyroid health, then you put thyroid below. For the ladies that I generally coach, there are a lot of the things I say in there, or approved foods, or let's say combination I teach you in there, there's a reason behind it because of how we want to optimize that kind of signaling. Okay. So again, if you want to learn more about thyroid health or thyroid nutrition, you can put it below. Next hormone, cortisol. All right. The big C hormone, cortisol. How many of you believe you struggle with high cortisol here? Because this one is the more common hot topic I hear a lot. Cortisol, okay? So cortisol is produced by adrenal glands. Your cortisol regulates stress response, metabolism, and inflammation, okay? Now, cortisol is important in small amounts, meaning your body needs a little bit of cortisol to wake up in the morning. It needs a little bit of cortisol to build muscle. Okay, so it's not that it's all bad, but what's very damaging is chronic cortisol. And I speak about this a lot. I know you guys are more well versed in this. For example, if I was to say, who knows about insulin growth factor 1 versus cortisol? Half the people will be like, or 80% will be like, I know cortisol, but I don't know insulin growth factor, because I know what's more common out there, right? So I know that a lot of you listening know about cortisol, but let's talk a little bit deeper about cortisol. So in your 20s, 30s, again, it's good. It responds to different stressors. You can be more stressed, less stressed, and it just fluctuates it's just very good. Like it doesn't stay elevated. In your 40s, your chronic stress in your body. So remember, where does that chronic stress comes from? The chronic stress comes from, let's go back to the very start, estrogen dropping. Okay. Your estrogen dropping is producing a whole bunch of whack load of changes going in your body, which causes a dysregulation of stress response. Okay. So this leads to elevated cortisol in your 40s. Now in your 40s, it's elevated, but you may not have experienced all the symptoms yet. But if you don't deal with it, it will come and bite you in your butt in your 50s, 60s, 70s, because now that cortisol will really, really increase your inflammation in your body, put a lot of visceral fat in your body, How many, and I'm going to talk about this specifically about visceral fat. How many of you have belly fat and visceral fat in your belly? Like you see your waistline is just like there, increasing. It's belly fat. Put belly fat below or visceral fat. Okay. So the reason behind this, okay, is because the visceral fat cells have a cortisol intense receptors. It actually is loaded with cortisol receptors, okay, in the belly. And when you don't manage your cortisol well, it is pulling all of those, like fat cells kind of basically into the abdominal region. Let's talk about cortisol's impact on your belly fat because we know that it's actually called the belly fat hormone, cortisol, right? We need to control that stress level. So like in the belly fat region, when it deposits more belly fat into your body, okay, the unfortunate thing is now it becomes a vicious cycle. The vicious cycle is that it attracts more fat cells there, okay, because of elevated cortisol. Once the fat cells are in your belly fat and visceral fat in itself, those molecules are highly inflammatory. They produce inflammatory cytokines, like interleukin 6 and all of these inflammatory molecules. So it releases more inflammation in your system. So it's very tricky for menopausal women. That's why you may find it very hard to get rid of your belly fat because not only does it like all the things that are happening, dropping your body, it is attracting fat in there, but as it accumulates fat, it is now producing higher levels of inflammation in your body, right? And so that's kind of why, again, I'm going to go back to just everything you do as a menopausal woman. I need you to think about controlling inflammation. I can't emphasize that enough to all of you because you're fighting a losing battle. You're fighting a losing battle essentially in your body if you do not control that inflammation. Okay. And that cortisol will also affect your appetite and cravings. Okay. Cortisol actually increases your need for high calorie, sugary, fatty foods. Okay. And so if you have a lot of cravings, you want to eat a lot of different things, treats and stuff like that, that may be coming from your cortisol, that you have high cortisol. It also affects your ghrelin and your leptin. Your ghrelin is your hunger hormone and your leptin is your satiety hormone. So it will affect the signaling and cause you to overeat. Okay. So the appetite and cravings part of it, if you have uncontrolled, you can't figure out why sometimes you eat all sorts of things. I want you to put cravings below. Again, I was talking to another gal, was it 2 days ago, who says, yeah, I don't know why I have a lot of cravings. Oh no, it was sleep. I'm going to talk about sleep in a bit, but it impacted her cravings too. But it's like, if you have a lot of cravings, put it below because that's showing me that you have imbalance in your nutrition. Typically, you're imbalance in your macros as well as having the hormonal imbalances, particularly relating to cortisol. Okay. And obviously high cortisol reduces insulin sensitivity. So when you have more and more cortisol in your body, the insulin response is basically like stunted. Your insulin response is not responding well to carbs. Okay. So yeah, so there's a lot that happens basically. So I'm like, without, again, like I said, it's complex. So if you were to look at the cycle of cortisol and belly fat, okay, so cortisol and belly fat. Let's talk about the cycle of cortisol and belly fat. When you have increased cortisol, your visceral fat will increase. When your visceral fat increases, you will have increased inflammatory cytokines released into your body. With increased inflammatory cytokines released in your body, you will have reduced insulin sensitivity. Now, what does that mean? We're going to keep going with the cycle. With the reduced insulin sensitivity, it means you will have higher blood sugar in your body. Higher blood sugar in your body means there's more fat storage as well as potential arterial deterioration and atherosclerosis. Okay. With more fat storage in your body, okay, typically visceral fat, it will increase stress and hormone response in your body and cause more cortisol. So did you see how that basically went in a full circle? Okay. So I want you to understand that because I say this a lot, tackling belly fat is a monster on its own. Okay. It is not, you're not 20 and 30. I know we all love those 20s and 30-year-olds who can just go to the gym, reduce calories, and then they can drop their belly and they look so lean and good. And you're like, I used to do that. I know, I talk to a lot of you. You're not 20 and 30s. This is why I say dropping belly fat is a beast on its own, right? So if above you already put belly fat, that's good. We will connect with you. But if you're like, I've been struggling with belly fat for a long time, I need to know how to change this situation, then put belly fat below, because again, you have to consider so many things. Again, I'm diverging a little bit, but it's because there's just so much knowledge in my head. Is I see a lot of people go, okay, I have belly fat, so I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm just going to say it's not that intermittent fasting is bad, but I'm going to intermittent fast. I'm just going to not eat. I'm going to not eat for long periods of time, or I'm going to like go work out. I feel so motivated in January. I'm going to go work out like super hard for like 90 days. Okay. I'm going to tell you two things that is potentially going to happen if you're not conscious as a menopausal woman. I understand there's lots of research on intermittent fasting. I understand there is benefits to intermittent fasting. I'm not saying, and there's high levels of research supporting this. However, if someone who is coaching you does not understand, or if you are doing this on your own and you don't understand hormonal changes, what if what you're doing in your intermittent fasting is exacerbating the cortisol response of your body and causing more stress hormones, causing dysregulation of your ghrelin and leptin, which I spoke about here. And now you're putting your body through this type of protocol when everything you're trying to do is try to lower cortisol and balance your hormones and balance ghrelin and leptin. It can cause problems. Now, again, I'm going to say that with a grain of salt. I understand there's a lot of experts who speak highly of intermittent fasting, but they always say this: consult with your doctor or a health professional, because it does not work for everyone. And that there's some people who are not suitable to do intermittent fasting. And there are some people, like, for example, like if I go to my other example, somebody who's like, I'm going to just go work out super hard and I'm going to do CrossFit and then I'm going to go 90 days hard. I'm going to work out like crazy. Is everything you're doing is spiking your cortisol, and you're going crazy on the cortisol response, and you're not thinking about everything I said above. Estrogen and all these things have dropped, which means your repair mechanism is gone or reduced. Your repair mechanism in your muscle and your joints are reduced. So you need to be super careful what you say and do. And yes, there's a lot of protocols out there. But the one thing I am trying to encourage all of you is, if you are going to try anything or take any action, you must understand this hormone pathways and what is happening in your body. My approach is always about, how do I help my menopausal women control inflammation and reduce cortisol? That is my number one approach as a coach who coaches women above 40. And this is why you need to have knowledge behind this, is why I'm doing this live. I know that I'm not getting into the specifics of 90 to 150 pages with you guys, but I'm trying to give you enough so you understand to not just fall for anything and buy a program that says you're going to build muscle. And you need to understand this hormones. Then you can understand the magic, like I said in my email, behind how to get to the body you want, right? So, like I said, put belly fat below if you want to know how to tackle belly fat or cortisol, okay? Biggest struggle for menopausal women, cortisol and belly fat, okay? Women, all of you listening, we're amazing. Men don't understand how much we have to go through too. We go through a lot, not only in having to create a child, but all the stuff that you guys have to handle. We're phenomenal. But the problem is, because we have to handle so many hormones, you have a lot to consider in vitality, longevity, muscle mass preservation, creating stability in your neurotransmitters and brain health, all of that, right? So just know that you guys are amazing. I know I'm covering a lot of this. You're like, this is crazy. I don't know if I like being a woman now, but we can make the best out of it too. So, okay, number 9 is DHEA. Okay, so DHEA I speak a lot about, again, in that muscle sculpting masterclass within like the BioRevive system. If you do that 3-hour course in that system, pay attention to that. This is like huge, okay? DHEA is produced in the adrenal glands and serves as a precursor to estrogen and testosterone. DHEA is very important. And basically, DHEA, if you don't have, the right signals, it will basically go down a cortisol pathway, meaning it can change itself to cortisol. But if it has the right signals, it can change itself to estrogen and testosterone. Of course, we want that DHEA to not turn into cortisol as much as we can, and for it to turn into more estrogen, testosterone in our body, right? So again, DHEA is super high in 20s, 30s, supporting energy, libido. In the 40s, it starts to drop, and that reduced production in your 40s really starts to affect your sexual health. In your 50s to 70s, very low DHEA exacerbates fatigue, muscle loss, and weight gain. Okay. So DHEA, like I said, it will, when it lowers, it really affects your muscle mass, because it affects testosterone, right? And lower testosterone. So it will lower your muscle mass and it will increase your fat storage. Okay. The lowered metabolic rate with the DHEA affecting like those hormones really cause excess calories to be stored. Okay. So as well, DHEA, like I said, really interacts with cortisol. Okay. So with lower DHEA, cortisol increases. And when cortisol increases, then you have more belly fat, increased appetite and cravings, and your insulin resistance increases, like I spoke about before. So DHEA is very important to continue to preserve. Now, DHEA, again, have certain foods you can eat with it, but also protocols. Again, things like sleep, good sleep schedules, again, certain vitamins, certain foods, and healthy fats all connect to DHEA. Why? What is DHEA? What is hormones? Did you know hormones come largely from fats and healthy fats? So you have to have good fat ratios in your body to produce proper hormones in your body. Okay. So as well, DHEA regulates fat lipolysis. So if you have high amounts of DHEA, you can break down fat a lot faster. So just a note again that's why when you get older, as you want to lose fat in your body, it slows down because you don't have as much of these DHEA and hormones to support the fat loss process. Okay. So DHEA also affects your mitochondrial health. Okay. It supports your ATP functioning in your body. So if you have good DHEA, it will help you have better ATP production. So that's why when you start to drop off and your energy drops, you don't have as much energy for your workouts. It's a little bit less. Okay. So if you want to understand better the DHEA side of things, and again, how that interacts. So basically DHEA interacts with estrogen and testosterone as well as cortisol, but DHEA is also very connected with HGH, human growth hormone, and insulin growth factor. That diagram and how it all works was in the muscle sculpting masterclass. So if you want to understand more of that, just put muscle sculpting masterclass or BioRevive, one of those, because it's in that masterclass. Okay. So the last hormone we're going to dive into, and then we're going to get into some actionable plans. Remember, today's live isn't for me to do a 10-hour training with you. Okay. Today's live is to just give you a really good overview of like all the hormones and then some actionable steps. Okay. So you understand your body. Okay. So the last hormone we're going to dive into, 35 eyeballs, is ghrelin and leptin. Okay. So ghrelin is produced in your stomach. It is the hunger signal that like grrrs. That's why I always remember grrr is ghrelin. That's how I always remember it. It grrrs, like when you're hungry and it grumbles, that's your ghrelin signaling you need food. Okay. And leptin is secreted by your fat cells. Leptin signals satiety. Okay. Like fullness. Okay. Now, when I say as you hit into menopause and kind of that whole situation, the ghrelin leptin signals become dysregulated. Why? Two things. I'm making it simple. It's not that simple. Cortisol, really dysregulates ghrelin and leptin. Poor sleep dysregulates ghrelin and leptin. So as you experience these symptoms, you can see there's a lot of changes in your ghrelin and leptin. Okay. And so with the changes in ghrelin and leptin, typically your ghrelin signals kind of increase and your leptin signals become muted. Okay. Leptin signals become muted, so you actually don't know when you're actually full, hungry. I coach so many of you. Sometimes half of you are like, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat anything. And you eat like 800 calories. I have like at least 3 or 4 of you like that. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like half of you be like, what? Who can eat so low? It's because they say they're not hungry. Their ghrelin leptins are all over the place. And then there's the opposite. There's some of you who are like cravings all through the roof and you don't know why. You just want to eat that bag of chips. It's because of your ghrelin leptin dysregulation. Okay. This ghrelin leptin dysregulation needs to be manually controlled by you. And so you're like, what? What I mean by that is based on how you eat. If you eat well and you understand, and so for like my clients that I teach, like, okay, I know I've been so on, Lauren, you're on here, and Carmen, I don't know if Carmen's on here. I've been really on them for macro combos, particularly. I know that. I keep messaging them like the combos, and then whereas Hope, I'm really on her for inflammation. But like I'm on you guys for certain reasons, but one of the things is the way you combine the food, but also the way you eat is like the timing and how it's distributed. The nutrition and how it's distributed also impacts your ghrelin and leptin, right? So if you want to understand better, like quality, quantity, and timing of food, I want you to put that below because that does impact your ghrelin and leptin. That's why you need to create stability in your body. There's this interesting thing about, and everyone has a different philosophy. I think there's lots to it too. I agree that intuitive eating has a place. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to tell you that, like, if you intuitively eat without thinking about it, well, your body's hormones are malfunctioning, signaling incorrectly, having car crashes, having a lane that goes off to the right and a lane that goes off to the left. So sometimes when you just like, I'm just going to listen to my body, there's a place for it, but there's another place where you need to be like, no, I'm going to structure my eating. I'm going to have specific protocols on how I eat, how I combine my food, the timing and how I split my protein, carbs, and fats throughout the day, because it all impacts those hormone signals. And that's my point in like how I coach my clients. Why I'm on them for certain things is because of this type of situation. Okay. So if you want to have better understanding of quality, quantity, and timing of food, put that below. Okay. The very last section, like I said, I knew this would be a super long live. And when I saw 50 pages of my notes, I went, OMG, we're not going to get through this live. So that's why I built it this way. For this live, I wanted to talk about those 10 hormones. Okay. So make sure I'm glad you are taking notes if you're taking notes. This very last part, I'm going to go through quickly, but it's going to give you an idea of the solutions. Okay. It's not going to get into all of it, but it's going to give you an idea of some of the solutions. Okay, so I'm going to go through actually one more interconnection of the hormones and then the solutions. So I want you to understand those 10 hormones I just spoke about, how they work in your body and why we need to be careful of it, okay? This is important because I spoke about 10 hormones and you guys are all like, oh my gosh, there's so many hormones to worry about. Like how does this all come together? So this is my opportunity to teach you how they come together. Okay. So I'm going to go back to sort of that cycle. Okay. The cycle, the traffic, it's supposed to run a certain way. So, or what's happening when it dysregulates. So insulin resistance, we're going to start with this. If you are in your 50s to 70s, you highly potentially struggle with insulin resistance, which means your body does not uptake sugar well, does not respond to insulin well. This insulin resistance will cause increased inflammation in your body. This increased inflammation will spike your cortisol level, and that cortisol level spike will cause a dysregulation in a whole bunch of hormones like I spoke about. Now, this cortisol situation is now connected with estrogen. the estrogen is continuing to decline. Okay. So it's continuing to decline. And as the estrogen is continuing to decline, the cortisol is continuing to rise. So think about this. Your cortisol got spiked by insulin resistance. Your cortisol is continuing to be spiked by estrogen declining. Basically, think of estrogen dropping, cortisol rising. And then now with the high cortisol, it downregulates your hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, which is like the whole like pathway. Basically, your whole thyroid pathway, it downregulates your whole thyroid. Okay, so high cortisol is downregulating your thyroid, and then your insulin resistance and your downregulated thyroid now greatly impacts your muscles because it cannot actually build muscle properly, and it increases your fat distribution. So that's basically the summary is with all those things that are happening, it's producing lots of changes in your body. And chicken or the egg, which one do we deal with? I spoke about cortisol a lot, right? And that's because that is something we need to control all the time as you head into 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 40s, because 40s is the start, is the yellow light. And if you don't slow down on the yellow light, you're going to crash, right? So just to help you understand how they come together. So let's talk about some solutions here. So in regards to how do we optimize hormones and better control all of this? The first thing I'm going to say is obviously you need to optimize nutrition. Nutrition is 70% of your results. You want a healthy body, we need to start there first. You need to have very good understanding of macros, okay? What is macros? Protein, carbs, and fat. If you did not watch my first live on Mastering Your Macros on 40s, please put that below, Mastering Your Macros live, because that one was very detailed on macros. You need to master knowing what are quality protein to eat. We need high quality protein with high bioavailability. What I mean by that is, does your body absorb that protein well? There are certain proteins that are absorbed in your body better than others. And so you want to focus on high quality, high bioavailable protein. You want to choose low glycemic carbs. Okay, everything you do as a menopausal woman, you have to be very conscious of carbs. You need carbs, but you need to choose things that do not spike your insulin. Okay, so healthier starch carbs like, yeah, I like yams. I always talk about yams a lot. Yams and quinoa and vegetables. Like, you have to choose the healthier carbs, and you need to include healthy fats. Now, in regards to healthy fats, you need particularly lots of good omega-3s. That is very important. A lot of good omega-3s. Now, your omega-3s is really important, but you have to be very careful about the types of oils you use, the types of ratios between omega-3s and omega-6s, which I talked about on my Mastering Macros live, and the types of fat, and the fat is very dense. Okay. Fats are very dense and very high calories. So you need that, but be careful. If you don't understand macros and calories and ratios, yes, eat healthy fats and eat healthy nuts and stuff like that. But be very careful because your body is in a state of fat storage, right? Everything I explained above means that everything's going to store fat on you. And if you eat a lot of fats, which is super high density, like just even a small handful is super high density, you could potentially be triggering a lot of fat response. Now, further to this, okay, if you don't understand fat ratios, your fat response is dangerous. Why? Okay, because fat produces more fat. Okay, fat has hormones. Fat cells have hormones that it excretes. It excretes more hormones for inflammation. It excretes more hormones to put more fat cells on you. So you want to be careful of the ratios of your fats and everything. That's why I say you need to know your macros. It's not just for fun. It's just that I just believe that the better you know your macros, the healthier you will be, right? So again, if you want to learn more about macros, make sure you put macros below. And the Mastering the Macros live is good. I see a lot of requests for that. But it's like, if you want to actually understand the macros for your body, put macros below because this is the thing is not everybody needs the same amounts of fat macros or protein macros in their body or carbs. It depends on a lot of things like, are you a sedentary individual? How hard do you work out? And what kind of workout are you doing? Are you running to the gym and doing 3 days of HIIT training? Are you, what kind of lifts are you doing? Are you doing triceps and abs, or are you actually doing high compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, pull-ups? Like, all of these things matter. So macros is particularly important. And I do think that, if you want to be precise with your body, you need to know macros. That's my philosophy and I'm sticking to it. So that's my coaching philosophy. So next thing, okay, exercise. Okay, obviously we know the next solution is we need to make sure we move our body. But in particular, what is the important parts of optimizing hormones? Okay, this is so important. Optimizing hormones in your workouts. I spoke about this. You need to use MTP protocol, menopausal training protocol. So put MTP again if you want to learn more about this. You need to prioritize strength training in there at least 3 to 4 times per week minimally. You must have little bits of HIIT training in there. However, I'm going to say with a word of caution, HIIT training is needed okay, let me explain it first. HIIT training will really spike your HGH hormones, human growth hormone. It will really spike your insulin response level. Okay. So is why HIIT is touted very highly. However, HIIT training is very dangerous for menopausal women without proper understanding of what you need there, because it will spike your cortisol like crazy. It will spike your cortisol like crazy. And right before this, I spoke about cortisol being a very, very difficult hormone for menopausal women to handle. Okay. So you want to balance this, but there's a certain protocol you want in place. You want to ensure there is a lot of walking. I know a lot of women are particularly good with this. They get their steps in, and because walking has something to do with like steady state cardio. And there's aspects of steady state cardio you want as well, which is why with like Carmen, if you were watching, I don't think she's on here, I told her, hey, like I need you to make sure you get that level of cardio back into your workouts. Because sometimes we can get caught up on like, I want to strength train, I want to build muscle, I want to strength train, I want to build muscle. But you forget there's other elements to your training you actually need to still have. And there's other things too, like I said, compound movements and progression of your workouts, progressive overload. So MTP protocol, like I said, MTP, put it below if you want to learn more. Okay, so the next solution is lifestyle choices, okay? So without me even saying it, you know what I'm going to talk about here. In regards to lifestyle, everything you do needs to be about controlling cortisol. So things like, let's do yoga, let's do meditation, let's work on mindset, how to have a healthier mindset, how to stabilize your metabolism and eating. Okay. So stabilize metabolism and eating, I'm going to say this, is why I teach so much on how you need to eat your food. Okay. Okay. At the end of the day, when you do, I said this before, at the end of the day, it's true. If you get the total amount of calories and macros you need in a day, that is what's most important. But for a menopausal woman, how you eat your food and where you space it out and how long you don't eat your food does affect your hormones and in particular your cortisol. So you need a more regular eating schedule, and you need to know how to like space out those eating and regimen better for yourself. A little bit more regular is better for a typically menopausal woman. It's about stabilizing your eating protocols. Okay. So if you eat like a bird all over the place, you have no stability in your eating, that's not really good. Okay. Try to have some stability or get on a program that teaches you how to have that. Okay. And in regards to holistic aspect as well as sleep, right? Sleep controls a lot of those hormones like cortisol, ghrelin, leptin. It stabilizes all those hormones. And so you want to make sure you have good sleep patterns as well. So in regards to this particular lifestyle choices, I want you to put the word holistic protocol or holistic wellness, because if you are really serious about like being the best you in menopause in 50s, 60s, 70s, you cannot afford to not be holistic. Holistic is the way to go. I know a lot of my clients, who is it who said this? Was it Shirley yesterday in the live, or one of you on the Bio Revive said, I love the Bio Revive because it is holistic. Oh, I know who it is. She's in the dance scene with me. Lenny Santiago. Lenny Santiago said, I love this program because it is holistic. Because I make you guys track a whole bunch of stuff like your sleep, your stress, your mindset, your all of that. So if you are wanting more holistic protocols, put holistic below. And it's because it's not just because it feels good. I mean, I love holistic because I mean it's nice. I mean, I love the whole word and the concept, but I want you guys to go deeper. The reason why I spent so much time on this live going through all those hormones was to help you understand why, if you don't take a holistic approach, you basically are not solving the highway problem. It's like the highway of the cars of your hormones are like going all over the place and crashing into each other. And comes one person saying, okay, work on insulin here, and you work on this part of the highway, but the car crashes are still happening over here. And then another person's like, I'm going to go work out now so I could get more human growth hormone, and you go fix that part. But these other cars here are still crashing into each other. So that's why I say you need to create a holistic approach. Yes, let's talk about it briefly here. There are a number of different things you can tap into, like that will help you with your hormone regulation. Adaptogens are very important. Adaptogens like ashwagandha, rhodiola, like I said to one of my clients or a few of my clients, that helps regulate cortisol in your system is important. Understanding your nutritional profiles like vitamin D and vitamin B. Vitamin Bs are really important for brain health and for a lot of metabolic situations, right? CoQ10 is actually very important for mitochondrial health. Now, there's more. Again, I can't get into all of it, but like I'm giving you some examples is like your supplementation and some of the foods that you eat, like fatty fishes and healthy omega 3s, all support your hormone health, right? So that's why I kind of say like if you want to have better understanding of how to balance your hormones and supplementation, like or food and nutrition, you should put that below. So if you want to better balance your hormones, put balance hormones below. Okay. So Vero says, does your mindset cause stress, or does stress cause a bad mindset? That's a great question, Vero. So I'm going to answer that. It is cyclical, but it starts with bad mindset. That's actually what I would say first, because your mindset is actually produced by your electrical signals in your brain that you like actually are signaling to each other. Okay. So when you have a thought process, a thought is producing an electrical signal. So it starts from you monitoring your thought process, where it starts, the mindset, the neurotransmitters that are excreted. It starts there. Yes, it can be exacerbated by the environment. It could be worse because of like hormone imbalances and whatnot, but it still starts with that. That's why I always say you have a choice to make a positive decision and mindset on things. You can choose to think like a victim, or you can choose to think like a victor, right? In every situation. So for example, after you watch this live, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many hormonal complications and all of this. I feel so like I don't know, disappointed or overwhelmed, right? That's a choice you just made. The choice you can make otherwise is, oh my gosh, wow, like I understand so much more about hormones, and Clarice like has different programs, or wow, I can like learn more from her, maybe on I don't know, muscle masterclass. Awesome. I'm going to make a choice to go that way. And that changes your synapses right away. It changes what neurotransmitter molecules are excreted through the neurotransmitter synapses. because I love that stuff. I study the brain anatomy, and it shows exactly what happens when you have a thought process and what happens between the one dendrite to the next dendrite. Okay. That's why I always say, monitor your mindset, monitor the mindset. Okay. So I see balance hormones coming in. I see all of that. So the last thing I will say here is you should regularly get your checkups. Okay. Always get your regular checkups to monitor your hormone levels. Your hormone levels are changing all the time. Like I said, I am continuing to develop some things within that new program that's coming out very soon. And there's a chart, the chart of all those 10 hormones, all 10 hormones all graphed out, and what happens between 20, 30, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, what happens with all 10 hormones and correlation with each other. It's actually really cool when you see it on a graph. And the graph itself really shows you like at what point you need to be more and more cognizant of what hormones, right? So if you want to learn more about the programs or the modules or curriculum, just put program below. Like I said, I'm not sure if I will do a master class on hormones, because the more I did this, the more I was like, this is crazy. There's no way you can, like, for every single hormone, I have an action plan for you, but I don't have time to get into it. For every single hormone, estrogen, you have to do these things. Progesterone, you need to do these things. Every single one. Okay. So if you want to understand and learn more on the programs, then put programs below. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up here. Thank you everyone, 30 eyeballs, for sticking with me. I just want to wrap up with giving a shout out to Thayer McAfee. I believe Thayer is in the FFF group coaching program, and she's in her last couple weeks here. She has lost 11 inches off her body and 4.5 inches in her waist. She has lost 6 pounds so far, and I saw her picture. Her belly is shrinking in, so I've seen her belly coming down. I also saw that she can now do a longer plank time. So that's Thayer McAfee. And I'm bringing this up because our FFF group coaching program, we are in the uptake right now for that program to start in a couple weeks. And it is if you want to be part of a small group woman to be coached in everything I talked about and all of this, like macros, inflammatory markers, balancing hormone, having MTP protocol, like basically FFF has that all in a group. Transformation program has it all in a custom 101. But FFF is a small group one. Okay. So I would put program or FFF below if you want to be a part of that group. And right now that FFF program is 25% off up till the end of January. Okay. So hopefully that added value to all of you. I know this was quite complex, but hopefully you found value in understanding all the complexity of hormones, why you need to eat healthier, why you need to watch your inflammation, and all the things that I talk about. Okay. If you enjoyed this, please tag someone on here, share it with other people, tell people about the group. It really helps us. And I have something exciting I will announce probably next week. So make sure you tune in. And yes, and one last thing, if you don't have our Fierce Woman workbook guide, make sure you put a gift below, because you could take notes on that guide with every live that I do in this month of January. Okay. Awesome. If you love it, if you love this, tell me, share it with me, share it with other people. And I love you guys. Bye. Okay. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.